I can't marry you anymore. The words came through my phone speaker while I was restocking organic produce at the grocery store where I worked. Garrett's voice was flat, rehearsed. Honestly, Sloane, you're just not the kind of woman I need for my future. Victoria and I are together now. She understands ambition. My hands didn't shake as I set down the box of avocados. The other stalkers kept working around me, oblivious. Victoria Hammond? I asked calmly, already knowing the answer. The trust fund heiress who'd recently joined his law firm as a client relations manager. Yes, look, you'll understand eventually. This is better for both of us. I need someone who can network, who has connections. You're sweet, but let's be honest, you work at a grocery store. I ended the call without another word. Around me, customers browsed the aisles, completely unaware that my 3-year relationship had just imploded via phone call. What Garrett didn't know was that I'd been expecting this exact conversation for 2 weeks, ever since I'd seen the deleted credit card charges for jewelry I'd never received. My name is Sloane Mercer, and I'm 29 years old. For the past 6 years, I've worked at Greenfield Market, a upscale organic grocery store in the wealthy part of town. Most people see the uniform and assume that's all I am. Garrett certainly had. What nobody knew was that I'd been quietly building something else entirely. 3 years ago, I'd started a small online business selling handmade herbal remedies and wellness products. It began as a hobby, mixing recipes my grandmother had taught me. Then customers started requesting custom blends. I'd kept it separate from Garrett deliberately. He'd always dismissed my little projects as cute distractions. When I tried showing him my growing customer base, he'd pat my hand and suggest I focus on finding a real career instead. So I stopped mentioning it. The business had grown slowly but steadily. Last month, I'd quietly registered it as an LLC called Heritage Botanicals. My savings account, which Garrett assumed contained maybe $2,000, actually held $47,000. I'd been preparing to quit the grocery store and go full-time with my business. Garrett's timing was almost perfect. I finished my shift with mechanical efficiency, my mind already planning. That evening, in my small studio apartment, I opened my laptop and reviewed the numbers I'd been calculating for weeks. My business had reached a tipping point. With the right investment and full-time attention, it could actually become something significant. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from Garrett's friends and family. Most assumed I was devastated. His mother sent a patronizing text about how these things happen, and I'd find someone on my level eventually. His sister asked if I needed help packing up my things from his place. I responded to none of them. Instead, I emailed Juliet Crawford, a business consultant who specialized in scaling small wellness brands. We'd connected at a local entrepreneur meetup 2 months ago. She'd seen potential in Heritage Botanicals and had been waiting for me to commit fully. "I'm ready," I wrote simply. "Let's build this thing properly." Her response came within minutes. "About time. Coffee tomorrow morning. I have some ideas you're going to love." The next morning, I met Juliet at a coffee shop far from Garrett's usual haunts. She arrived with a leather portfolio and the kind of confident energy that made things happen. At 42, she'd built and sold 3 successful companies. "First things first," she said, spreading papers across the table. "Your products are excellent, your branding is amateur, your pricing undervalues what you're offering, and your online presence is practically invisible." I nodded, taking notes. This was exactly the brutal honesty I needed. "Here's what I'm proposing," Juliet continued. "I'll invest $25,000 in my consulting services. In return, I want 15% equity. We'll rebrand, launch a proper website, and get you into boutique retailers within 3 months. Your grocery store days end today." My heart hammered. This was real. "I have 47,000 saved," I said. "I can match your investment." Juliet smiled. "Then we're capitalizing at 72,000. That gives us serious runway." She slid a contract across the table. "Read this carefully. Sign it when you're ready. But Sloane, this only works if you're all in." I signed it that afternoon. Quitting Greenfield Market was surprisingly easy. My manager, Dorothy, had always known I was overqualified. "About time," she said when I gave notice. "You've been planning something, I could tell." "How?" I asked, genuinely curious. She smiled. "Honey, I've managed this store for 20 years. I know when someone's just passing through versus when they're stuck. You were always passing through. Go build whatever you've been dreaming about." During my 2-week notice period, I threw myself into rebranding. Juliet introduced me to a designer who transformed my homemade labels into something sleek and professional. We photographed products, rewrote descriptions, and built a website that looked legitimately premium. Meanwhile, Garrett's social media told its own story. Photos of him and Victoria at charity galas, expensive restaurants, weekend trips to wine country. She wore designer everything and had that effortless, wealthy girl look that came from never worrying about money. The comments praised them as a power couple. I didn't block him. I wanted to watch. Not from pain, but from curiosity about how long his fairy tale would last. 3 weeks after the breakup, Heritage Botanicals officially launched. The rebrand was stunning. Where my old packaging had looked homemade, the new design was minimalist and elegant. Juliet had connections with 3 boutique retailers who agreed to stock us on consignment. "Start small," she advised. "Prove the products move, then expand." I'd also started an Instagram account, posting daily content about natural wellness, herbal benefits, and behind-the-scenes glimpses of product creation. Juliet insisted on showing my face, telling my story. "People connect with people," she said. "You're young, relatable, and you're building something real. That's your advantage." The growth was modest but steady. 20 orders the first week, 43 the second. By week 4, I was fulfilling 70 orders weekly and the boutique retailers were reordering. I worked 16-hour days from my apartment, mixing products, packaging orders, managing social media, and learning everything about running a real business. I'd never been happier or more exhausted in my life. And I hadn't thought about Garrett in days, except when his photos reminded me why I dodged a bullet. 2 months post-breakup, something shifted. A wellness influencer with 200,000 followers ordered a custom blend for her chronic migraines. When it worked, she posted about it enthusiastically, tagging Heritage Botanicals. My website crashed from the traffic surge. I called Juliet in a panic. "We got 1,500 orders overnight. I can't fulfill this alone." "Then don't," she said calmly. "Time to hire help, and Sloane, this is the good problem, this is what we wanted." Within a week, I'd hired 2 part-time assistants and rented a small commercial space for production. The orders kept coming. 3 more influencers featured my products. A wellness magazine requested an interview. Boutique stores from other cities reached out about stocking Heritage Botanicals. My Instagram following grew from 300 to 12,000. Comments flooded in from customers sharing their results, asking questions, requesting custom blends. I answered every single one personally, building relationships and loyalty. Meanwhile, I'd moved into a better apartment, nothing fancy but twice the size of my studio. I bought decent furniture, invested in my workspace, and started dressing like someone who owned a growing business. The transformation was internal as much as external. 4 months after Garrett's phone call, Heritage Botanicals hit a significant milestone. A regional wellness chain wanted to stock us in 35 locations. The contract Juliet negotiated would bring in consistent revenue and serious visibility. "This is it," she said during our weekly strategy meeting. "This is where you go from scrappy startup to legitimate brand. But Sloane, you need to be ready for what comes with success. Competition, copycats, people who dismissed you suddenly wanting back in." I understood exactly what she meant. My social media had started attracting attention from people in Garrett's circle. Former mutual acquaintances who'd pitied me after the breakup were now liking my posts, leaving encouraging comments, acting like they'd always believed in me. His sister requested to follow my business account. I declined. The regional chain launch went smoothly. Sales data from the first 2 weeks exceeded projections by 40%. My products were moving fast, particularly the sleep and stress relief blends. Customers were finding me through word of mouth and returning for refills. I hired 2 more employees and promoted one of my original assistants to production manager. Heritage Botanicals was becoming a real company with real infrastructure. 6 months after the breakup, I attended a wellness industry conference in the city. Juliet had insisted I start networking with other business owners and potential investors. I wore a navy blazer and carried business cards with my new title, Founder and CEO, Heritage Botanicals. The conference was full of established brands and entrepreneurs. I felt slightly out of place until I started conversations and realized I belonged there. My growth numbers impressed people. My story about building the business while working retail resonated with other founders who'd started from nothing. During a networking lunch, I met Connor Davies, who owned a chain of yoga studios and had recently launched his own wellness product line. We talked about sourcing challenges, scaling issues, and the difficulty of maintaining quality during growth. "You're doing this right," he said, reviewing my Instagram on his phone. "Authentic engagement, real results, genuine story, that's rare in this industry." He asked for my number to continue the conversation. I gave it to him, surprised by how easy it felt to connect with someone who understood this world. That evening, Garrett called for the first time since the breakup. "Sloane, it's Garrett." His voice was uncertain, nothing like the confident dismissal from 6 months ago. "I saw your business online. It looks really impressive. I had no idea you were building something this successful." I stood in my hotel room, looking out at the city lights. "You never asked." Silence. Then, "Look, I know how things ended wasn't great. I was thoughtless. But I've been thinking maybe we could grab coffee, catch up properly." "Why?" I asked simply. "Because I miss you. Because I made a mistake. Victoria and I aren't working out. She's great on paper, but there's no real connection. Not like what we had." I almost laughed. "Garrett, I don't think coffee is a good idea. I'm focused on my business right now. I'm sure you understand." "Come on, Sloane, don't be like this. Can't we at least talk?" "We are talking, and now we're done. Good luck with everything." I ended the call and blocked his number immediately. Whatever closure he needed wasn't my responsibility to provide. The next morning, I negotiated my first major investment deal. A venture capital firm specializing in wellness brands offered $200,000 for 12% equity. With Juliet's guidance, I countered at 10%. They accepted. Month 7 brought unexpected complications. A competitor launched a product line that seemed suspiciously similar to mine, using nearly identical branding colors and marketing language. Juliet suspected they'd hired someone to copy my strategy. "This is what success looks like," she said when I expressed frustration. "You're doing well enough that people want to ride your coattails. Take it as validation, then out-innovate them." I focused on what made Heritage Botanicals unique: the personal connection with customers, the custom blend service, the transparent sourcing. While competitors could copy my aesthetic, they couldn't replicate the community I'd built. Connor had become a regular text conversation. We'd met for coffee twice, talking business and occasionally venturing into personal territory. He knew about Garrett and had his own breakup story involving an ex-wife who'd left him for her personal trainer. "The universe has interesting timing," he said during our third coffee meeting. "Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you sets up the best thing." I was starting to see his point. If Garrett hadn't dumped me, I'd probably still be working retail, treating Heritage Botanicals as a side project, playing small to accommodate his insecurity about my ambitions. Month 8 marked Heritage Botanicals' first feature in a national magazine. The article profiled 5 emerging wellness brands to watch, highlighting my journey from grocery store employee to founder. The writer had interviewed several of my customers, who enthusiastically praised the products and my personal approach to customer service. The magazine hit stands on a Tuesday. By Wednesday afternoon, my website had processed 4,000 orders. My production team worked around the clock to keep up. I hired 4 more people immediately and began researching larger commercial spaces. Juliet was triumphant. This is the inflection point I predicted. You're about to scale exponentially. The question is whether you're ready to handle it. I was ready. I'd spent months preparing for exactly this moment, building systems and processes that could expand. The investment capital allowed me to move quickly, signing a lease on a proper production facility and ordering commercial-grade equipment. My Instagram following hit 80,000. My posts regularly got thousands of likes and hundreds of comments. Several brands reached out about collaboration opportunities. A podcast wanted me as a guest to discuss building a business from nothing. Somewhere in all of this, I'd stopped checking Garrett's social media entirely. Month 9 brought an unexpected invitation. The wellness chain that stocked Heritage Botanicals was hosting an exclusive event for their top-performing brands and important clients. The invitation specified cocktail attire and promised networking opportunities with industry leaders. I bought a dress that actually fit my new life. Sleek black, professionally tailored, expensive. I'd never spent $400 on clothing before, but Juliet insisted that showing up looking successful was part of being successful. Connor offered to attend with me since his yoga studios worked with the same chain. Purely professional, he assured me with a slight smile. Though I won't complain about spending an evening with someone who actually understands quarterly projections. The event was held at an upscale venue downtown. I recognized several faces from the industry conference. People who'd barely noticed me 6 months ago now approached with genuine interest, asking about Heritage Botanicals' growth and what I attributed our success to. Authenticity, I said repeatedly, and actually caring about whether the products work. Midway through the evening, I saw them. Garrett and Victoria, dressed to impress, clearly attending as guests of his firm's senior partner. They hadn't noticed me yet. I watched them work the room with practiced charm. Victoria wore diamonds that probably cost more than my first year of revenue. Garrett had the confident posture of someone who'd never doubted his place in rooms like this. Connor followed my gaze. Someone you know. My ex-fiancé, I said quietly, and the woman he left me for. Connor studied them thoughtfully. Want to leave, or would you prefer to show them exactly what they missed out on? Before I could answer, Garrett's eyes found mine across the room. His expression shifted from polite networking smile to genuine shock. He said something to Victoria, who turned to look. Her face revealed nothing, but her grip on Garrett's arm tightened slightly. They approached. There was no avoiding it without making a scene. Sloane, Garrett said, his voice carrying forced casualness. This is unexpected. I didn't know you'd be here. I'm here representing Heritage Botanicals, I replied calmly. One of the chain's top-performing brands, and you. Garrett's firm does legal work for several vendors, Victoria interjected, extending her hand. Victoria Hammond, I don't think we've officially met. I shook her hand briefly. No, we haven't. Connor Davies, this is Garrett Walsh and Victoria Hammond. The 4 of us stood in awkward configuration. Garrett's eyes kept darting to Connor, clearly trying to assess the situation. Victoria maintained her polished composure, but I caught her glancing at my dress, my confidence, the way people kept greeting me as they passed. Heritage Botanicals, Garrett repeated. That's your little herbal thing. I saw it mentioned in that magazine article. Little, Connor interjected smoothly. Heritage Botanicals is projected to do 7 figures this year. That's hardly little. Garrett paled slightly. 7 figures? Sloane, that's incredible. I had no idea it was that successful. No, I agreed. You didn't. An executive from the wellness chain approached, greeting me warmly and asking about production capacity for holiday season expansion. I excused myself from the conversation, leaving Garrett standing there with his reassessment clearly visible on his face. The rest of the evening, I felt his eyes following me around the room. Victoria's perfect smile had developed a tight quality around the edges. Whatever they'd expected tonight, encountering me as a successful business owner clearly wasn't it. Connor and I left early, neither of us particularly interested in prolonging the evening. "That went better than expected," Connor said as we waited for my car from valet, "though I'm guessing it wasn't comfortable." "It was fine," I said honestly. "Actually, it was more than fine. 6 months ago, running into them would have destroyed me. Tonight, I barely felt anything except mild annoyance at the interruption." He smiled. "That's growth. The best revenge really is living well." "It's not even about revenge anymore," I realized aloud. "I'm just living my life. They're not part of it." My phone buzzed as I drove home. A text from an unknown number that I immediately recognized as Garrett's new one. "Can we please talk? I made a huge mistake. You've become exactly the kind of woman I should have appreciated. Please give me a chance to explain." I deleted it without responding. There was nothing to explain, and more importantly, nothing I wanted to hear. That chapter was finished. The next morning brought news that Heritage Botanicals had been selected for a feature in a prominent business publication's 30 Under 30 Entrepreneurs to Watch list. Juliet called, laughing with delight. "You're about to become the face of successful small business scaling." The business profile required a photo shoot and an extensive interview. The journalist wanted to know everything: my background, my inspiration, how I'd funded the initial investment, what obstacles I'd overcome. I told the story honestly, including working retail while building the business in my spare time. "What about personal life?" she asked. "That's always interesting for readers. Any significant relationships, family support?" "My grandmother taught me everything about herbalism," I said. "She passed away 5 years ago, but this business is really a continuation of her legacy. As for relationships, I'm currently focused on growth." I didn't mention Garrett. He wasn't part of this story. The article published 3 weeks later with professional photos of me in my production facility, surrounded by herbs and products. The headline read, "From Grocery Store to Growth Story, How Sloane Mercer Built Heritage Botanicals from Scratch." Response was overwhelming. My Instagram gained 30,000 followers in 2 days. Orders tripled. Interview requests came from podcasts, blogs, and local news stations. I hired a part-time social media manager just to handle the volume. And Garrett kept trying to contact me through various channels. Emails, texts from different numbers, even a LinkedIn message. All said variations of the same thing. He'd made a terrible mistake. He wanted another chance. He'd always known I was special. Month 11 brought a turning point in multiple areas. Heritage Botanicals secured a deal with a national pharmacy chain to stock a limited product line in 500 locations. The contract was substantial enough to require bringing on a business operations manager and expanding my team significantly. Juliet advised hearing a CFO. "You're past the point where you can handle finances yourself. You need someone focused entirely on that while you focus on vision and product development." She was right. The business had grown beyond what I could manage alone. I interviewed candidates and hired Whitney Torres, a former finance director for a wellness startup that had successfully exited. She took one look at my books and immediately implemented better systems. "You've done remarkably well," Whitney told me during our first week working together. "But you're leaving money on the table with your pricing structure and some inefficient processes. Let me fix that." Within a month, she'd increased our profit margins by 18% without raising prices, simply by negotiating better supplier contracts and streamlining operations. Heritage Botanicals was becoming a professionally run company, not just a scrappy startup. Connor had evolved from networking contact to actual friend, then something more. We'd started dadding casually, both careful not to move too fast. He understood the demands of building a business and never resented the long hours I worked. One evening, Connor and I were having dinner at a nice restaurant when Garrett appeared at our table. He looked worse than at the networking event, tired and slightly desperate. "Sloane, please," he said, ignoring Connor entirely. "Just 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking." "Garrett, no," I said firmly. "I've ignored every message because I have nothing to say to you. Please leave." "You don't understand. Victoria and I are done. I realize now that what we had was real. This success you're having, I could help you with that. I have connections, legal expertise. We could be partners. Connor started to stand, but I touched his arm, stopping him. This was mine to handle. Garrett, listen carefully. I don't need your help, your connections, or your legal expertise. I built this without you. I'm succeeding without you. And I'm happy without you. That's what you need to understand. We're done. Permanently. He opened his mouth to argue, but the restaurant manager appeared, clearly summoned by our server. Sir, you need to leave now or I'll call the police. Garrett left finally. Connor reached across the table, taking my hand. You okay? I'm perfect, I said, meaning it completely. Month 13 marked Heritage Botanical's first anniversary since the official relaunch. Juliet organized a small celebration at the production facility, inviting my team, key retailers, and the handful of investors who'd joined our journey. I gave a short speech thanking everyone who'd believed in the vision when it was just me mixing products in my apartment. Looking around the room at the 30 employees, the professional operation, the genuine relationships I'd built, I felt overwhelming gratitude. A year ago, I said, this was a side project I worked on after retail shifts, hoping it might someday become something real. Today, we're on track to do $2 million in revenue, we're stocked in over 600 locations nationally, and we're just getting started. Thank you for being part of this. The applause was genuine and warm. These people had worked hard to make Heritage Botanicals successful. This wasn't just my achievement, it was ours collectively. After the celebration, Connor and I walked through the facility together. Remember when you were frantically fulfilling orders from your apartment? He asked, laughing. Look at this now. Industrial mixers, automated packaging, quality control stations. You've built something real. We've built something real, I corrected, gesturing to include everyone who'd contributed. The final surprise came from an unexpected direction. Whitney approached me one morning with unusual excitement. You need to see this, she said, pulling up an article on her tablet. The headline read, Walsh & Associates law firm faces ethics investigation following client complaints. The article detailed how Garrett's firm had been accused of conflicts of interest and mishandling client funds. Several high-profile clients had left, including the Hammond family's various business interests. Apparently, Victoria's father pulled all their legal business when she and Garrett broke up, Whitney explained. Without that anchor client, the firm's financial issues became visible. They're not going to survive this. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not sympathy, nothing. Garrett had made his choices, and those choices had consequences that had nothing to do with me. File that under not my problem, I told Whitney. What I actually need to know about is our Q4 projections. She grinned, switching screens. Now that's why you're successful. Focus on what matters. That afternoon, I had a meeting with a venture capital firm interested in a significant investment to fund Heritage Botanicals' expansion into international markets. The presentation went smoothly. They asked smart questions, I provided thorough answers, and by the end, we were discussing terms. Connor and I became official sometime around month 14, though the transition was so natural that pinpointing exactly when felt impossible. He understood my priorities and never made me choose between the relationship and my business. In fact, he actively supported both. I watched my ex-wife resent my success, he told me one evening. She wanted me available constantly, wanted me to prioritize her over everything else, including my own growth. I won't do that to you. Your success is attractive, not threatening. That perspective made all the difference. With Garrett, I'd always felt like I was taking up too much space, wanting too much, dreaming too big. With Connor, I felt like I was exactly enough, exactly as I was. Heritage Botanicals continued growing steadily. We launched a subscription service that became immediately popular. We expanded our custom blend offerings. We hired an in-house herbalist with advanced credentials to develop new products. Every quarter brought new milestones. My Instagram following hit 300,000. I'd become a minor influencer in the wellness space, regularly posting about business growth, herbal education, and work-life balance. My authenticity resonated with people who were tired of the fake perfection common on social media. 18 months after Garrett's phone call, Heritage Botanicals secured a major acquisition offer. A national wellness conglomerate wanted to buy us for $8 million. They'd keep the brand, the team, and bring me on as a division president. Juliet and I spent weeks analyzing the offer. "This is life-changing money," she said, "but it's also giving up control. You need to decide what success means to you." I thought about it carefully. $8 million would be financial security I'd never imagined. But Heritage Botanicals was my creation, my grandmother's legacy, something I'd built from nothing. Could I watch someone else run it? After lengthy negotiations, we declined the acquisition, but accepted a smaller investment that gave them 15% equity while keeping me in full control. They'd provide resources and distribution networks while I maintained creative and strategic direction. "You just turned down $8 million to keep running a company," Whitney said, half admiring and half incredulous. "That's either brilliant or insane." "It's both," I admitted. "But this isn't just about money. It's about building something meaningful." The compromise worked perfectly. With the conglomerate's resources, Heritage Botanicals expanded into 12 new international markets within 3 months. 2 years after the breakup, I attended another industry event. This time, I was one of the featured speakers, giving a keynote about scaling small businesses sustainably. The room was packed with entrepreneurs hoping to replicate my success. I told my story honestly. Working retail while building a side business, getting dumped by a fiancé who thought I wasn't ambitious enough, using that rejection as fuel to prove him wrong, then realizing the best revenge was forgetting he existed while building something meaningful. The speech resonated. Afterward, dozens of people approached with questions, stories, gratitude for the inspiration. Connor watched from the back of the room, smiling proudly. We'd gotten engaged last month, a partnership between equals who understood and supported each other's ambitions. His studio chain had expanded to 15 locations, and we'd started discussing potential collaborations between our brands. As I packed up my materials, someone approached hesitantly. Victoria Hammond, looking significantly less polished than at previous encounters. "Sloane, I wondered if I could speak with you briefly." I nodded, curious despite myself. "I wanted to apologize," she said quietly. "For my part in what happened with Garrett, I knew he was engaged when we got together. I told myself it didn't matter because he said you weren't right for each other. But that was wrong, and I'm sorry." I studied Victoria, surprised by the genuine remorse in her expression. "Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it." "For what it's worth," she continued, "I think you dodged a bullet. Garrett revealed his true character eventually. He was more interested in what I represented than who I actually was. When my family cut him off, he became someone I didn't recognize." "People show you who they are when things get difficult," I agreed. "I'm sorry it didn't work out, but I'm not sorry about how things ended up for me." We parted cordially, 2 women who'd learned hard lessons from the same man and come out stronger. Later, Connor and I drove home together, my engagement ring catching the light as I reached over to hold his hand. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if Garrett hadn't ended things?" Connor asked. I considered the question seriously. I'd probably still be working retail, treating my business as a hobby, playing small to make him comfortable. His rejection was the best thing that could have happened. That night, I updated Heritage Botanicals' social media with photos from the keynote speech. The caption read, "2 years ago, someone told me I wasn't ambitious enough for their future. Today, I spoke to 2,000 entrepreneurs about building the future you want. Rejection redirects you to where you're supposed to be." The post got 40,000 likes, but what mattered most was the message from my assistant. "New wholesale order just came in. We're officially at $3 million projected revenue this year." I smiled, closed my laptop, and focused on my present. The past, and everyone in it, had served its purpose by showing me exactly what I was capable of when I stopped trying to fit into someone else's limited vision of my potential. Season's greetings from Revenge with Dorothea. The full story is now available on our channel. Kindly subscribe for more stories. Stick around. Bye for now.